Welcome to Stories Pulse, where the most heart-pounding, emotional, and unforgettable stories unfold. Today's tale will leave you questioning fate, family, and the unexplainable twists of life. If you're ready for a journey full of mystery and emotional revelations, make sure you stick around until the end. But before we dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like this video, and share it with those who love stories that tug at the heartstrings. And for the latest updates on every thrilling new story, be sure to click the bell icon so you never miss out. Now let's get into the story that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Welcome to Stories Pulse. Let's begin. Stephen Mitchell stood in the doorway of their new apartment, watching his 5-year-old son, Dylan, dart between stacked moving boxes like a pinball. The afternoon sun streamed through bare windows, casting long shadows across the empty rooms that would soon become their home. "Daddy, look how big my room is!" Dylan's excited voice echoed off the walls. "Can I put Mom's picture right here by my bed?" Stephen's heart clenched. 2 years after Ashley's death, Dylan still kept her memory alive, with an intensity that sometimes took his breath away. The worn photograph of the three of them at the beach, the last good day they'd had with Ashley, went everywhere Dylan did. "Sure, buddy. As soon as Grandma Marie gets here, we'll hang all our pictures." "Is she coming on the train? Can we go watch the trains?" Stephen smiled despite himself. "She is, and maybe we can, if we get enough unpacking done first." He checked his phone. No messages from the base yet. This transfer had been a godsend, a chance to start fresh with a promotion and the promise of stability. No more deployments, no more leaving Dylan with his mother while he served in combat zones. After losing Ashley, Stephen couldn't bear the thought of his son losing another parent. The memories flooded him as he began unpacking the kitchen. Ashley's diagnosis, just months after Dylan's 3rd birthday. The rapid decline that followed. Those final precious moments when she'd smiled at him one last time before slipping away. She'd been so young, so full of life, despite her harsh start in foster care. "Life's too short for regrets," she'd always said. "Daddy?" Dylan's small voice pulled him back to the present. "Can we put the stars up in my room? The ones Mom liked?" "Of course we can, champ," Stephen replied. "Let's find that box." As they searched through their belongings, Stephen thought about how different Dylan was from other kids his age. More serious, more aware. Sometimes he caught his son studying Ashley's photo with such concentration, as if trying to memorize every detail of her face. The sound of a car door made Dylan rush to the window. "Grandma's here, and she brought her famous cookies. I can smell them." Sure enough, Marie Mitchell's distinctive laugh floated up from the street below. Stephen watched his mother emerge from her car, arms loaded with bags. She'd been their rock these past 2 years, helping them navigate life without Ashley, while somehow knowing exactly when to step back and let them figure things out on their own. Well, Marie announced as she swept through the door. "I see you boys have made a fine mess of things already. Good thing I'm here to sort you out." Dylan launched himself into her arms. "Grandma, did you bring the snickerdoodles?" "What kind of grandmother would I be if I didn't?" She hugged him close, then gave Stephen a knowing look over Dylan's head. "And I brought something else too, my organizational skills. This place needs a woman's touch." Marie's prediction proved true. Within hours, the apartment began transforming under her experienced touch. She directed Stephen and Dylan like a seasoned general, turning chaos into order. "The photos go here," she declared, arranging frames on the mantel. "Ashley should be the first thing people see when they walk in." Stephen watched as his mother placed the largest photo, their wedding portrait, in the center. Ashley's smile seemed to light up the room, just as it had in life. She'd been so beautiful that day, practically glowing with joy, despite having no family of her own to attend. "Tell me about the wedding again, Grandma," Dylan requested, carefully holding a smaller frame. "The part where Mom's dress got caught in the door." Marie laughed. "Oh, that poor dress. Your mother was so worried about having everything perfect, and then she got stuck trying to leave the church. But you know what she did? She laughed, just threw her head back and laughed like it was the funniest thing in the world." "That was Mom," Stephen said softly. "She could always find the bright side." Even at the end, when cancer had ravaged her body, Ashley had maintained that spirit. He remembered their last real conversation, just days before she died. "Promise me something," she'd whispered, her once vibrant voice barely audible. "Promise you won't let Dylan forget how to laugh. Don't let my death shadow his whole life." "I promise," he'd said, holding her fragile hand. "But you're going to get better, the doctors." She'd squeezed his fingers with what little strength she had left. "We both know that's not true. Just promise me you'll both keep living. Really living, not just existing." Now watching Dylan help Marie arrange kitchen supplies, Stephen wondered if he had kept that promise. They were surviving, yes, but were they really living? "Stephen James Mitchell," Marie's voice cut through his thoughts. "Stop brooding and come help me with these curtains. Ashley would have my head if I let you turn this place into a man cave." That made Dylan giggle. "What's a man cave, Grandma?" "A sad place where men think beige is a decorating scheme and pizza boxes are wall art." Marie winked at Stephen. "Your father tried that in college. Lucky for him, your mother had better taste." As they worked, Marie filled the apartment with stories about Ashley. Not just the sad final days, but the happy times, the silly moments, the little details that made her real to Dylan. She had a gift for keeping Ashley's memory alive without letting grief overwhelm them. By evening, the apartment had transformed. Warm colors brightened the walls. Family photos created a timeline of love and loss. Ashley's favorite throw blanket draped across the couch, as if she just left it there. "Well," Marie announced, "who's hungry?" "I saw a promising little Italian place down the street." "Can we have pizza?" Dylan asked hopefully. "Actually," Stephen said, "why don't we do something different? Something new." He remembered Ashley's words about really living. "That place we passed looked interesting. What do you say we try an adventure?" Marie's approving smile told him he'd made the right choice. As they headed out into the evening, Stephen felt something he hadn't in a long time, a sense of possibility. Life was moving forward instead of standing still. The morning of Dylan's first day at Little Sprouts preschool dawned bright and clear. Stephen watched his son meticulously pack and repack his Spider-Man backpack, making sure Ashley's photo was safely tucked in the front pocket. "Remember, buddy," Stephen said as they walked the 3 blocks to school, "Mrs. Bennett is expecting you. Grandma Marie says she's known her for years." Dylan nodded solemnly. "Do you think the other kids will like me?" The question made Stephen's heart ache. Dylan had always been a little different from other children his age. More serious, more thoughtful. Ashley used to say he had an old soul. "Of course they will," Stephen said. "Just be yourself." Sarah Bennett met them at the classroom door, her warm smile immediately putting both father and son at ease. She was younger than Stephen had expected, with kind eyes and an air of quiet confidence. "You must be Dylan," she said, kneeling to his level. "I hear you're quite the helper at home." Dylan straightened proudly. "I helped Grandma organize all the kitchen cupboards yesterday. She says I have a good eye for detail, just like my mom." Sarah's expression softened as she glanced at Stephen. They had discussed the situation over the phone. She knew about Ashley, about the importance of handling mentions of his mother with care. "Well, we could certainly use a good organizer in our art corner. Would you like to see it?" As Dylan followed Sarah into the classroom, Stephen noticed how he unconsciously touched his backpack where Ashley's photo rested. They discussed whether bringing it was a good idea, but Marie had been firm. Let him carry her with him until he's ready to let go. Children know what they need. "He'll be fine," Sarah assured Stephen quietly. "We'll take good care of him." "I know it's just..." Stephen struggled to find the words. "After Ashley died, it was just us. Then Mom moved in to help, and now you're trusting someone new with your most precious person?" Sarah finished the thought. "It's natural to be nervous. But look, he's already making friends." Sure enough, Dylan was showing another boy how to properly sort the colored markers. The other child watched in fascination as Dylan explained his system. "That's Mason," Sarah said. "He could use a friend who knows how to organize things." Stephen smiled, remembering Ashley's methodical approach to everything, from grocery shopping to battle plans against cancer. "He gets that from his mother." "Good traits have a way of living on," Sarah observed. "Now go on. He needs to see you trust this process. Have a great day, buddy. I'll pick you up this afternoon." Dylan waved, already absorbed in his marker sorting mission. Stephen lingered a moment longer, watching his son navigate this new world. Ashley would be proud, he thought. Their boy was growing up. The day passed in a blur of military paperwork and orientation meetings. Stephen checked his phone, probably more times than necessary, but no calls came from the school. Finally, just before 4 p.m., his phone buzzed with a message from Sarah. Dylan had a great first day. He told me all about his favorite color, green. I think you've got an artist on your hands. Stephen smiled, breathing a little easier. Tomorrow, Dylan would come home with stories to tell. At bedtime, after reading a few pages from one of Ashley's favorite books, Stephen kissed Dylan on the forehead and tucked him into bed. "Mommy would be so proud of you," he whispered. Dylan's eyes sparkled in the dim light as he clutched the photo of Ashley to his chest. "I'll always remember her, Dad." Stephen nodded, unable to say anything more without his voice breaking. As he closed the door and turned out the light, he realized something he hadn't let himself feel in a long time. Hope. Stephen's thoughts were clouded when his mother's voice sliced through the fog. Marie must have arrived just in time to see him collapse. "Deep breath, son," she said. The Ashley who wasn't Ashley stood frozen, one hand pressed to her mouth, the other gripping Katie's shoulder. The little girl looked between the adults, confusion growing in her eyes. "Mommy," Katie tugged at her mother's sleeve. "That's Dylan's daddy. Why does he look scared?" The woman's voice was soft but different from Ashley's, yet hauntingly familiar. "I think I look like someone he used to know." "You look like my mom," Dylan said matter-of-factly, pulling Ashley's photo from his backpack. "See?" The woman's hands shook as she took the photograph, her face drained of color. "I never knew my birth family," Ashley's voice cracked as she whispered. "Maybe we should continue this conversation inside," Sarah suggested gently. Inside Sarah's office, introductions were made. Natalie Anderson. Not Ashley, but her mirror image. The children were sent to play under a teacher's supervision, while the adults tried to make sense of the impossible. "My parents never mentioned a twin," Natalie said, still staring at Ashley's photo. "Ashley never knew her birth family at all," Stephen managed, his head still spinning, but his heart racing. "She aged out of foster care," he continued. "We tried searching once, but the records were sealed." Marie studied both photos, Ashley's wedding portrait and the one of Natalie and Katie at a birthday party that Sarah had quietly retrieved from Katie's file. The resemblance, well, it was beyond remarkable. "When did you move here?" Natalie asked suddenly. "We've lived in this neighborhood for years," Stephen replied. "How have we never—" "Just this week," Stephen said, pausing. "Military transfer. His voice faltered. "Ashley died 2 years ago. Cancer." Natalie's hand flew to her mouth again. "Oh, God." "And Katie and Dylan, they're the same age. Same birthday," Sarah confirmed. "October 12th. A heavy silence settled over the room as the implications sank in. Twins separated at birth. Their children, cousins, who looked like twins themselves, born on the same day. "My mother," Natalie said finally, her voice trembling. "She might have answers, but—" She twisted her hands together. "I'm not sure I want them. What kind of person separates twins and keeps that secret for decades?" "The kind who thought they had no choice," Marie said gently, her voice tinged with sorrow. "Or the kind who made a mistake they're too ashamed to face." The drive to Natalie's childhood home felt surreal. Stephen followed her car, watching Dylan and Katie chatter animatedly through their windows at stoplights. Marie sat beside him, uncharacteristically quiet. "Are you ready for this?" she asked, breaking the silence as they pulled into a neat suburban driveway. "No," Stephen admitted, "but I owe it to Ashley to find out." Eleanor Parker's hands trembled as she served tea in her immaculate living room. Her eyes kept darting between the children playing in the corner and the photograph of Ashley that Stephen had brought. "I never thought—" Eleanor began, then stopped. She started again. "You have to understand the times. Richard, their father, he was a powerful man, wealthy, married." Natalie's voice cracked like a whip. "What are you saying?" Eleanor's shoulders sagged. "I was young, foolish. Richard promised to take care of us. But when he found out it was twins, his wife was suspicious already. He said we had to give one up, had to make it look like there was never a second baby." Stephen felt sick. So you just threw one away like she meant nothing? No, Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. I chose Natalie because she was slightly bigger, stronger. I thought Ashley would have a better chance of being adopted quickly, being so beautiful. I made sure she went to a good agency. But she wasn't adopted, Marie said quietly. She grew up in foster care alone. Eleanor collapsed into tears. I tried to find her later, when Richard died, but the records were sealed, and I was a coward, afraid of what Natalie would think of me. Well, now we know, Natalie said bitterly, her voice breaking. You let them separate us. Let my sister grow up thinking nobody wanted her. And then her voice broke. Now I can never know her. Dylan looked up from his game with Katie. But you can know me, he said simply. I remember lots about Mom. I can tell you everything. The adults fell silent, struck by the child's wisdom. Katie scrambled up to hug her mother. Don't cry, Mommy, she said. Dylan says Aunt Ashley was really nice and funny. And now we can be a family, right? Natalie gathered her daughter close, looking at Stephen over her head. Can we? Would that be okay? Stephen thought of Ashley, of her longing for family, for roots. She would have loved knowing about you, he said softly. Both of you. Eleanor stood shakily. There's a box in the attic. Baby things I kept from both of them. Pictures from the hospital. Her voice trailed off as she hurried from the room. I'd like to see them, Stephen said, if you're willing to share. Natalie nodded, wiping her eyes. It's what sisters do, right? Share memories. They spent hours going through the box. Tiny hospital bracelets, first photos of identical newborns, scraps of matching blankets. With each item, the weight of what had been lost and what might still be found grew heavier. Over the next few weeks, their lives began to intertwine in ways both small and profound. The children became inseparable, their bond growing stronger every day. Stephen found himself spending more time with Natalie, sharing stories about Ashley, discovering the similarities and differences between the twins. She used to do that exact same thing, he said one afternoon, watching Natalie absently twist her hair while reading. But she was left-handed. You're right-handed. Mirror twins, Natalie mused. That's what they call it when identical twins are opposites in some ways, like looking in a mirror. They were at the park, watching Dylan teach Katie his elaborate system for organizing the playground rocks by size and color. Marie sat nearby, pretending to read but actually watching everything with satisfied eyes. Did she? Natalie hesitated. Was she happy, despite everything? Stephen thought carefully before answering. She had this theory, that happiness was a choice, that you could let the hard parts of life define you, or you could choose to find joy anyway. Even at the end, she kept choosing joy. I wish I'd known her, Natalie whispered. Sometimes I feel like I did. Like there are memories just out of reach. Is that crazy? No more crazy than Dylan and Katie somehow knowing each other's thoughts, Stephen said, watching the children share a sandwich without speaking, each taking alternating bites as if they'd rehearsed it. Marie joined them on the bench. You know, Ashley always said she felt like something was missing, like there was a piece of her out there somewhere. I guess she was right, Stephen said quietly. The conversation was interrupted by Dylan's excited shout. Dad, Katie found a 4-leaf clover. Mom always said they were magic. Do you think she sent it? Stephen met Natalie's eyes. He saw his own mix of joy and pain reflected there. Maybe she did, buddy. Maybe she's been helping us all along. That evening, after the children were finally persuaded to separate for bedtime, Natalie lingered at Stephen's door. I've been thinking, she said hesitantly, would you both like to come to dinner tomorrow? I'd like to try making Ashley's lasagna recipe, the one Dylan keeps talking about. I'd like that, Stephen said, but fair warning. She never wrote it down. It was all in her head. I can only remember parts. Then we'll figure it out together, Natalie said, smiling softly. Make something new from the pieces we have. As he watched her walk to her car, Stephen felt something shift in his heart. Not a betrayal of Ashley, but perhaps a continuation, a new chapter in a story that wasn't quite finished. The wedding was as simple as the love story was complex. Just family. Dylan and Katie holding hands as they walked down the aisle together, Marie dabbing at her eyes in the front row, and a single photograph of Ashley placed carefully on an empty chair. "She should be here too," Natalie had insisted when they were planning. "She's the reason we found each other." The past 6 months had been a journey of discovery. Every day brought new revelations. How both twins had loved strawberry ice cream but hated strawberry jam. How they both sang off-key but with complete enthusiasm. How they'd both chosen teaching as their first career choice. Dylan and Katie had grown even closer, if that was possible. They finished each other's homework, shared inside jokes that no one else understood, and steadfastly refused to be enrolled in separate classes for the upcoming school year. "They're making up for lost time," Marie observed, "just like all of us." Eleanor had gradually become part of their lives too. Though the relationship remained complicated, her occasional visits added a new dynamic to their growing family. Through the chaos, the joy, and the heartbreak, Stephen had realized one thing. The pieces had finally come together. The pieces of the past, of his wife's legacy, of family, and it was a kind of magic he hadn't believed in until now. The end.